Hi, honey, how are you? Welcome back to the channel, or if you're new here, I'm Teknikolour. Since today is Earth Day, I wanted to make something that was inspired by nature. And so today, I'm sharing this build, located on the Rock Ridge Canyon lot in Realm of Magic's world, Glimmerbrook. If I'm being truthful, today's video was actually intended to be a reveal for a new shell challenge. But because I have so many things planned for the next couple of weekends, I wasn't able to lock in a date to host the stream of shell tours on my Twitch channel. The idea was that I'd make a shell, and since it was to be releasing on Earth Day, we'd turn it into something eco-friendly or nature-inspired. Even though I couldn't make a plan for the shell tours, I still wanted to build something with that same theme for today's video. So I spent some time searching for inspiration. Evergreen Harbor, the world that shipped with the Eco Lifestyle Pack, seemed like the perfect setting for this type of build. So I started out looking for real-life homes that were eco-friendly. I even toyed around with the idea of making a tiny house using the Tiny Living Pack, but nothing I found or tried to come up with on my own gave me that spark. And then I found this concept rendering of the Hugging House, designed by Valise Arquitecto, and immediately went to work on it in The Sims. I'll put a link in the description to a post I found with a video and more photos too, if you're interested. Now, I should say that I don't exactly know how eco-friendly a build like this could be in real life, since I can imagine the upkeep, especially on the roof, would be difficult. Besides that, there's not truly much here that implies this would be environmentally friendly, and I also neglected to add in items from the Eco Lifestyle Pack that could have helped push it towards that eco status. But in the end, it is just a really beautiful build, inspired by nature, and especially on this particular lot, it blends in nicely to the surrounding environment. So please don't come for me if this doesn't necessarily scream eco-friendly. I know that I probably could have come up with something a bit better for Earth Day, but I just was taken with this concept and had to run with it. Instead of Evergreen Harbor, though, I figured that this build would look amazing on a lot that I'd previously only built on once in Glimmerbrook, Rock Ridge Canyon. The name itself just sounds really cool to me. And since this concept looks inspired by rock, especially for the towering portion of the house, I knew this was the lot to build on. Having built here for my legacy save, I have memories of gameplay here, so it was very strange to bulldoze that older Victorian-style home I made for something way more modern. Also, please do not come for me if that's odd. I basically only used 3 saves. One for building, one for my legacy, and another specifically for shell challenges. I probably should do a fresh save for newer builds, but I'm so used to this one. It sort of forces me to try to build on lots that I haven't built on previously too. Not that today's video is a great example of that. The build that I originally had here, I can link the speed build for in the description. I actually just mentioned thinking about this house in my last video, I believe, because of one of the windows I used fairly prominently to create a sunroom or attached greenhouse. I just checked, and this is from 2 years ago. I really enjoyed playing in that house too. It's also kind of weird for me to look back on some of my older builds because I think my style has completely evolved over time. Like, I'd say that build was closer to my signature style than anything, but now I feel like I've been leaning more modern with my builds. Though I do plan on something more in that style for the next heir of my legacy family, so we'll see. He'll be living in Strangerville, and he's going to be a thief. I should probably let you know that in addition to these YouTube videos, I also stream regularly on Twitch. Most recently, I've been playing Pocopia, Palia, Styx Blades of Greed, and then on Thursday mornings, I play with my Sims Legacy family. I basically wrote a legacy challenge with my boyfriend to force myself to learn the gameplay tied to all of these packs that I've accumulated for The Sims 4, because I'd really only been familiar with them from a building perspective. It's been a lot of fun too. And right now, we're sort of in this transitionary period between Generation 9 and Generation 10. This is also very embarrassing for me because I just looked it up and I've been telling people for weeks that we're on Generation 10 and we're not. Soon we'll be on Gen 10, but not yet. Just found that out. Another thing I found out just now while looking at the Wyndham family tree is that Marco, who will be our Generation 10 sim, is going to be living in a house very similar to Archie, who was our Generation 5 sim, the one I built on this lot for previously. Isn't that wild? It does not feel like that much time has passed in between those generations, but clearly it has. It'll be really fun to have Marco officially take over once it's his turn, but we still do have some time left with his dad, Caspian. As for this build, you can see that things are really starting to take shape now. We have that main rocky-looking towering section, and then that block that kind of sticks out of there. I really loved the idea that on top of that larger section, there was a glass area of the roof, and the rest was landscaped. Then, within this sort of floating section, there's a balcony that is mostly landscaped with some of that greenery poking through the open air space. Ugh, I just thought the whole idea of this was so interesting. I hope I did it justice in The Sims. Obviously, I couldn't recreate it exactly, so it's more inspired by it than anything. But I love the finished look of this build and can seriously see myself playing in it too. Usually, I don't get to play in any of my builds unless they're for my legacy or I built something specifically for stream. I particularly love the glass box that basically travels the entire height of the build. I wanted so badly to recreate this in the game in a way that would not break it in some way. If I got rid of walls entirely and put, say, a window or a flat glass divider of some sort, lighting would break at the very least. I knew I'd want to at least attempt to play in this build, so I had to go with something that would make it work realistically. So after some trial and error, I decided to just make this glass bump-in room, and on the exterior side, add a fountain with a big rock. It sort of gives the same visual idea of the concept art, but, well, the Sims version. The floating part was quite interesting to figure out how to make work in the game too. I knew I'd need platforms on top, but I wasn't entirely sure how I'd mirror the roof of this area at the bottom. I assumed I'd need this level to be larger and use platforms again, but I realized that I could just add half walls as a sort of railing, and visually it'd match. Still, I couldn't tell entirely how the walls within this balcony space were supposed to look, other than blank wooden planks in the front. So I decided to mostly use these walls as windows, with a glass door to access the balcony itself. Speaking of the balcony itself, I knew that it had that cutout for some of the greenery to poke outside the roof, but there's also a portion of the roof that is glass. The only thing is, I wasn't entirely sure of what that entire side of the build looked like, at least on the interior. I think I had originally thought that the glass roof was above the bathroom, which in the concept art is part of the bedroom itself and not walled off. I do not like that. It makes such little sense to me to have the bathroom open to a bedroom. Without going into the complete lack of privacy you'd have, there's also all that moisture to think of, and I cannot imagine that being worth it. Though it is quite stunning to see the two rooms morph into each other in the concept art using greenery, it just doesn't seem realistic to me. Anyway, the balcony itself is this sort of lofted space above the kitchen and dining rooms. And since we don't really get to see within the concept art what this entire space looks like, I took my own creative liberties. I really enjoyed the thought of having that entire side, which overlooks the yard space, being just fully windows, especially because there isn't technically much in terms of windows on the other sides of the house. But the balcony is accessible from that lofted space, so I wanted to make some of that outdoor space usable. I put out some chairs and a fireplace and attempted to use some other items to blend the fireplace into the half wall to give the appearance of it being built in. I'm not even entirely sure if the fireplace would technically function expectedly. I know we have some fireplaces that do work outdoors, at least I think they do, but I don't know if there's a distinction between what will and what will not heat up an outdoor space. I've actually never considered that before this moment, and I can't think of a single instance in any of my builds where I've included a fireplace outdoors that isn't covered. This fireplace is technically covered too, because the tiles above have the platform roofing. My version of the exterior tried to work in as much as I could, using whatever we have in the game. I was incredibly worried for a good portion of this build that this would end up becoming a very expensive lot. And I think you'll be as surprised as I was to find out how it's not actually that expensive. I thought that was shocking and incredibly interesting. I was positive this was going to be such an expensive build, and for it not to be was weird to me. It's also quite interesting for me to, for the most part, work on landscaping and the general exterior look of a build this early. I think because I actually had a sort of blueprint that I could follow, it became a lot easier for me. I more just had to adapt to my own version of the concept and then run with that. But like these floor tiles, for instance, I assumed that using this amount in the end would have added on a drastic amount of money, and I was really bothered that I hadn't found a debug version or something. You'll have to let me know what you think once you've seen how much the lot actually costs, because again, I was sort of dumbfounded. Since we're on the topic of expenses, though, I thought now might be a good time to talk about the EA buyout. If you weren't aware, Electronic Arts, or EA, the publisher of The Sims, announced last year that they would be going private in a $55 million sale this year. I'm not sure if this is something that a lot of simmers or just gamers in general are aware of or not. This is a huge deal though, and even though I am in the EA Creator Network and also a Sims partner, I think it's important to bring awareness to it. This sale is something called a leveraged buyout, and this could be the largest leveraged buyout in history. So what does that mean for gamers? Why exactly do so many of us think it's bad news? Well, let's put this into perspective right now and just in terms of The Sims 4. Right now, we have expansion packs, game packs, stuff packs, and kits. Being a simmer can be quite costly once you add all of those packs up, and we know this. I think that things just got a little better once the base game became free to play, but it's still quite an expensive game. Some people have held up hope that we'll see a The Sims 5, though it seems like this Project Renee might be less Sims 5 and more of an additional type of game on top of The Sims 4. Even more, recently, they just announced that the marketplace would be coming to the game, and that it would be the exclusive place to purchase maker packs, as well as all of our existing kits and creator packs. So anything priced below stuff packs were now being pulled from other storefronts like Epic Games, Steam, whatever, and directly into the game. But you'd need a virtual currency, moolah, to purchase them. That is exactly what you can expect to happen in The Sims if this buyout goes through, because the whole idea of a leveraged buyout is to assist the bought out company with its debt. And EA has a lot of that. Then, to make it worth it for the individuals making the purchase, they cut back on things like new packs, especially the kinds of packs that bring something fresh and new to the game, free content updates, and likely even the people working on their games. Then they provide shiny new monetization schemes, like the marketplace and moolah. You're now spending more money, but getting less. This also hurts the makers too, because they're just getting a cut of the proceeds while doing the work. they'd have less team to work on the fresh packs and updates, and they can pay these makers less to work on new assets. Or even worse, they just end up selling us AI garbage instead of having these real people, artists, creating assets for the game. Now, just imagine that, but not limited just to The Sims, because EA publishes a lot of games. That's going to impact a lot of us gamers, even the ones who don't even know what a plumb bob is. But here's the thing. This could be the largest leveraged buyout in history, so it sets a precedent. This issue that was only impacting EA gamers could now be impacting every gamer, and all of these games. You should already be supporting indie games, but those developers are going to be having even more difficulties going against these larger games. On top of that, the buyers in this sale are Saudi Arabia's Public Investment Fund, PIF, Affinity Partners, and Silver Lake. To most gamers, those are made-up words that really don't hold much weight, but they could. These buyers, if you do some research, don't seem to have the same values that The Sims, meaning us as players, and the Sims team themselves do. If you've been as excited as I have been to see such incredible representation in the game, know that prioritizing representation won't be at the top of their list. They could remove, limit, and even stop these inclusionary practices that we've seen across packs and free content updates. I'm going to include a link to a petition by Players Alliance on Action Network that aims to block this deal. If you feel so inclined to sign it, please do. But I urge you to do your own research and see what you can learn about this buyout and how it could impact us as gamers. Don't just take my word for it. Moreover, reach out to your local representatives. Heck, even let The Sims and EA know your thoughts. I mentioned at the beginning of this whole news update that this sale was announced last year. While members of the US Congress have already called upon the Federal Trade Commission to do a thorough review of this deal before it officially passes, we're sort of running out of time here since that happens this summer. I know I've been talking about this in every video lately and on my streams, but I think it's so important to bring attention to it. Thank you for letting me get on my soapbox, again, if you've been watching my other videos, or for the first time, if you're just learning about this buyout. Thank you for hearing me out. I truly appreciate it. I altered the look of the kitchen from the concept art solely because I felt like we had so much space here in-game compared to the renderings. It seemed as if the kitchen was intended to be smaller and less grand, also included a sort of breakfast bar kind of area. Instead, I opted for a large kitchen with tons of storage space and an island that's bigger and more central to the room. I also opted for one of those big wall dividers from Businesses and Hobbies to add some privacy to the kitchen while still letting it remain totally open. Then, in the dining room, I have a table and eventually we'll add in a door here to give access to the yard and what will become an outdoor dining space. In that little bump out area, I just put a bar. I don't know if this is something that a lot of Simmers are aware of, but you can actually place bars like this against a wall, and they'll remain functional. Your Sims will be able to tend the bar, but obviously won't be able to sit at the bar since the side that is against the wall is where you'd normally be able to snap chairs to those slots. I promise we'll come back to both of these rooms to decorate them further later on, but for right now, let's move to the general living space. Oh, I should have also mentioned earlier when I said that I'm a Sims partner, I am not paid to play the game or even to give glowing reviews whenever a new pack drops. We, as partners, are encouraged to give our honest opinions when we're provided new packs to help us make content that I hope helps you decide if a pack is worth your money or not. However, I do earn a commission from EA whenever my creator code is used. That is, if you use my creator code, which is Teknikolour, just my name, when checking out pretty much any EA game on the EA app, you'll be supporting me and my content because of that commission from EA. A really great thing they've added is a 5% discount for you on Sims 4 pack purchases when using my code. It's still supporting me with that EA commission, but you also snag a discount. But you may not want to be supporting EA right now, and that's entirely up to you. If you'd still like to support me in some way, well, good news. Just watching these videos is supporting me, and I appreciate that more than you know. Anyways, back to the living space. The concept art had this area set up as almost 2 living rooms, one formal and another with a television. But I didn't think that would translate well into The Sims. Instead, I put the television near the front door and decided to make the back area near the stairs more for a dance floor and music. I had also realized that we had these floor light strips, I believe from Spa Day, that I somehow hadn't really ever noticed before. There's a lot of this sort of strip lighting throughout the concept art, and I thought I could use that here to sort of designate areas and bring attention to others. I also spent some time working on a fireplace, which I wasn't originally intending to include in this build, but I think works well here. Working on this little custom fireplace actually took a lot more time than you may think, because I used those big flame lights from Get Famous or something sized down. Then I used some rocks to hide them a bit, but the flames themselves will still stay where we want them. It's things like this that the tool mod can be used for that really help to elevate builds, because you can do so many custom things like this. Heading upstairs for a moment, I wanted to really plan out the office space. This easily could have become a second bedroom, but I knew I wasn't going to want to make the bathroom on the main floor a full bath, even though it's more than big enough for it. So I opted for an office. Sometimes it can be difficult to get different packs to work well together, especially when wood tones come into play, but I think that these bookshelves from Growing Together and the desk from the Comfy Gamer Kit complement each other nicely. Then just some minor decor in here before I fill out that cube shelving unit later on, because I knew that that was going to cost me a little more effort, so I wanted to get more of the clutter out of the way now. This next little chunk of the video is where I'm honestly putting a lot of the finishing details on the interior, and also working a bit more on the exterior, particularly the roof garden. I'd noticed that some of the plants I was using on the roof, their roots were poking through the ceiling because they're not likely intended to be used on roofs, and swapped those out for some others. While I'm decorating these spaces, though, I thought that maybe I could give you a little update and maybe convince you to check out my Twitch streams. Hear me out. I love The Sims and building in The Sims, and even though that is kind of the majority of the content you see from me here on YouTube, other than my shorts videos, which are mostly clips from my Twitch streams, it's not the only content I make. I try to mention my Legacy Challenge a fair amount here for those that might be interested in both builds and gameplay in The Sims, but that also is only part of who I am as Teknikolour. I started out streaming on Twitch well before I even considered making YouTube videos, back in 2020, when I was furloughed from my graphic design job. That's an entirely different story. That furlough turned into my position being eliminated, and me looking for full-time work, which, as a creative, has been difficult and has turned this into my full-time job. That's why things like making partner on Twitch and YouTube, being in the Sims Partner Program, having a creator code, things like that truly do mean a lot to me. Fortunately, my boyfriend Andy has seen more career success than I have during these last few years, and it's quite honestly the only reason I've been able to take this time to work on myself and try to make Teknikolour into a career. But again, that's a completely different story. But if you're interested in hearing more about my struggles as a creative since the pandemic and everything like that behind the scenes, please let me know. I think I'd be open to talking about that in one of my videos. Anyway, back to my content. I started out streaming Animal Crossing New Horizons and some other games like Splatoon 2, and then working on some platformers like New Super Lucky's Tale, which I will be replaying at some point. Since then, I've gotten a PC. So my content has grown from just Nintendo Switch to way more types of games, like The Sims 4. My current lineup, since I typically stream 4 days a week, is Styx Blades of Greed, which is a story game and very stealth where you're playing as this little goblin and attempting to steal and honestly help others. It's so much fun because even though I truly enjoy stealth games and I love taking my time and trying to sneak past and not get caught, I'm not the best at them, admittedly. So it makes for some seriously funny and shocking moments. I've also been playing through Palia, which is a cozy MMO game where you're sharing a world with other real-life players and able to cook, decorate, hunt, catch bugs, and progress story. It's really interesting, and if you're a fan of The Sims, I think you also may be interested in this one. But I also play some other games, sometimes community style, where I'm playing alongside you or on my own, and maybe doing a first-person shooter or something like The Last of Us or Uncharted, where I'm definitely not an expert. Then, of course, I play with my Legacy family once a week. Most recently, I've started playing Pocopia, which has been way more fun than I thought it would be and has started to really pull me in. This week, though, I'm also going to start playing in a closed beta of a little game called Loftia. This one is really cool to me because I just found out that I am officially a Loftia partner, similar to how I'm a Sims partner. These next 2 weeks are going to be the closed beta, so you may not have access, but myself and other partners have some codes to give away. I'll be checking the game out tonight and hosting my giveaway, but if you miss out on that, don't worry. I'm sure there will be other opportunities to learn more about the game. The whole idea behind the game is super cool too. It's essentially taking place in this solar punk world where humans are honestly kind of living in harmony with the world instead of, capitalism, destroying the environment, all those things that we've introduced to the real world. It's also an MMO like Palia, so you can play online with friends and farm, craft, communicate, and just explore this world where friendship and doing good for the world is the priority. I love that I'll be streaming this game tonight on Earth Day and exploring everything it has to offer. I know live streams aren't everybody's cup of tea, and that's okay, but just thought I'd bring up the types of games I play over on Twitch because I do think a lot of you who enjoy my Sims content here would enjoy my content over there. Back to the build though. Now I'm working on the bedroom, and this was really fun to design. I'm using those items from the sleek bathroom kit again to create a sort of extended headboard behind the bed, which will have tons of space for plants. I also did some decorating around the dresser off to the side and put a ton of little lights in this room to add more ambiance. There's also this window you may have noticed. It is a window, but layered a couple of times. I didn't even realize that this was possible until a friend of mine, who is also an incredible builder, showed me this trick. Just layer the same window a few times and suddenly it's now a frosted window. Behind it is the bathroom, which you can sort of see if you try really hard. I'll show more of that in the tour at the end of the video though, I promise. Normally, I'd have thought I went a little overboard with the plants, but not here. This build, quite honestly, could probably have used more greenery if you ask me. Though I am happy with my choices for adding plants and other decor throughout to really help celebrate eco-living and green life. I added in another small dresser with a television on it and a wardrobe for hanging clothes too. I don't know why I almost always add a television to my bedrooms. I have a TV in here, in my actual bedroom, I mean, in addition to my whole office setup here. But we almost never watch the TV. I think the most we watch of that TV is when we're folding laundry here on the bed behind me. Back in the office for a moment to add more plants and decorate that cube shelf. I'm not sure if I'm the only person who kind of struggles to decorate this shelf or not. I feel like it's quite difficult to find items that snap to the slots it has, but also fit. A lot of things need to be resized in order to work, and other items don't even snap to the slots at all. Then I'm spending a lot of time manipulating the game to let me alt place items I want into these spots. This is why I left this until later, because I didn't have the patience for it earlier. This next space is kind of a flex space. I didn't know what to do here. It sort of acts as the way to access the balcony, though we do add a door directly from the bedroom too. It's sort of small and awkwardly shaped given the doorway too, so I opted for some laundry and a little area for exercise. I also brought in some of those tall cabinets from the Grange mudroom kit to add a bit more storage space, since this build doesn't have too much of that other than in like the kitchen. This video is already kind of long, so I think I'm going to cut this last bit short a fair amount and just send us right into the game so you can get a quick tour. We're not missing too much though. I just sort of rearranged the backyard and freshened it up a bit. Then added some last minute details like lighting and stuff around the rest of the build itself. So here we are in the game on the Rock Ridge Canyon lot, and this is my version of that concept art that I showed you earlier. And I really like this. I mean, you have this door over here to where the dining room is, and you could just come out right here, and there is this new dining table that I added, and we've got this little fire pit area that's like a sunken pit, actually. You have the hot tub on this side, and then you have the pool over here. But what I really like is this sort of pathway slash driveway with these floor tiles. And then you can see you just go straight into the front door. And obviously it is fully open. So you have that area that is for music and dancing and even some games over here. And then you have the living room on the other side. And then right over here, they have that little fireplace. And then behind this stairway to upstairs is that half bathroom. But then you're just fully open to the kitchen over here. And I really like this kitchen. It's literally just like a square, but I think it's really beautiful. I really liked the way that this one fully turned out. And especially with this big window here, I just really like this kitchen. And it leads directly into this beautiful dining room that has this big mirror. So it helps bring in a lot more light that it doesn't really need, because we have this huge window here and then all of this is windows. Up those steps though, you come onto this little area, and this can lead you outside into that balcony space. But right through here is this little area for laundry and for exercise. And then out here on the balcony, there's a place where you can just sit and relax. There is that fireplace. And then there's also the door back here to get into the bedroom. This door right here leads you into this office, and it's very like calm and very like soft, but it's enough. There's a lot of clutter, and I think it's just like the perfect office for whoever lives in this kind of house. And then of course you have the bedroom over here, and look at all of these plants. I just think it's absolutely fabulous. You have that sort of frosted window over here looking into the bathroom. You have the TV over here, and then there is this little armoire that kind of just like gets hidden in with the wall. And then this is the bathroom. So you have a little tub right here, and of course there is the frosted glass. And then you've got the sink right here and this huge wall of mirrors, and then you've got a shower over here, and then the toilet is just tucked in right here. But that, my friends, is basically the entire build. If you enjoyed this video, please drop me a like and then grab the build off of the gallery. To add it to your game, you can find it using my EA ID, Teknikolour. If you'd like to see more of my builds and other cozy gaming videos, be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you won't miss out on future uploads. If you want even more Sims content, consider dropping me a follow over on Twitch. I livestream my pack-based legacy challenge every Thursday, but play other cozy games throughout the week. Planning on picking up Realm of Magic, Eco Lifestyle, or any other packs? Please use my creator code, Teknikolour, when checking out on the EA app. It's free for you and supports the channel. Plus, my code can now be used on so many other EA titles, not just The Sims, though that discount only applies for Sims 4 packs. But thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you in the next video. Bye-bye.